All eyes are now on U.S. Attorney John Durham's probe as he investigates potential surveillance abuses against President Trump and his team. Joining me right now is New York Congressman, Foreign Affairs Committee member Lee Zeldin. Congressman, it's always a pleasure to see you. Thanks very much for joining me this morning.
Thank you. It's good to be with you.
You know, I thought it was really stunning that the IG report came out and it forced the AG, William Barr, and John Durham to make a public statement saying it does not agree with the conclusions. What's your reaction to the IG? First, let's start there.
It's an important reminder that the investigation that was going on by Horowitz was not the only investigation that was going on at the Department of Justice. So the Inspector General has a limited amount of tools, really has to focus their investigation primarily on people who are at the Department of Justice, where the Durham probe, he has more expansive powers to get at interviews and information that might not be at Horowitz's disposal. But what Horowitz does uncover, and something that it's so important to have more transparency on and accountability, is with regards to those errors, with regards to the omissions in the decision to obtain those FISA warrants. As the Inspector General's report points out, there was a decision made not to pursue those spying warrants until in the middle of September, when they received this Steele dossier. And it's through omissions, it's through deception that they secure that first application. It's through omissions and through deceptions that they secure renewals. And through that process, the Department of Justice, the FBI, follows something called the Woods procedures. And as is pointed out by Horowitz, the Woods procedures were not properly followed here. And if they were followed, that might have helped deal with some of the mistakes that were made. But as Horowitz points out, even following the Woods procedures wouldn't have corrected all of the mistakes that were made. So that is really important information where the FBI, the DOJ, needs to improve their process going forward, because if there's any court in America where the government should have the burden not only of providing the evidence that best supports their case, but also providing the evidence that best opposes their case, it's inside of one of these courts, because the person you're seeking to spy on is not represented by counsel in there. So a lot of mistakes were made, and I think that Durham will get to the bottom of some of the outstanding information.
What do you make of Jim Comey coming out, tweeting, I'm going to be on Fox, oh no, they canceled me, and oh, this was all lies. He's out, in force trying to put a damper on this report, saying that the FBI handled everything proper. I mean, when we know that there were 17 errors in terms of creating the justification for a warrant to spy on Carter Page, and we know that there was exculpatory evidence which was not handed over to the FISA court. What is Jim Comey and his colleagues doing? You've got Andrew McCabe referral for a criminal referral on him, and he's out also saying that this is all lies.
My first thought in reading that tweet that Jim Comey put out was that he hadn't yet actually read the report. If he did actually read the report, then it's quite dishonest and engaging in this spin of trying to put on a strong face, a strong posture to be on offense. But he is not acknowledging, he's not accounting for all of the mistakes that were made under Crossfire Hurricane, and he is the FBI director. So where that thought is that the buck should stop at the top, he is actually advocating for zero accountability, as if no mistakes were made at all. And it really is a reaffirmation that President Trump made the right decision in getting rid of James Comey, because to have this Inspector General's report come out, and for someone like Jim Comey and Andrew McCabe to say there's nothing to see here, no mistakes were made, it shows that these two people definitely didn't belong in the positions they were in.
Yeah. So I want to move on to China, but before I do, Congressman, let me get your take on what was the most damning parts of the IG report. People are waking up this morning, it's 500 pages, it's hard to read the whole thing. We've been covering this for 3 years, so we understand where the wrongdoing was. But I want to hear from you in terms of where the most damning issues were in the IG report yesterday.
I think it's good to read the summary in the first few pages to start. You could go towards the back of the report, look at Appendix 1, read the entirety of Appendix 1. It's a few pages. It has a lot of this spelled out. And then towards the back of the report, there's about 10 or 12 pages that go into detail about the errors that were made with regards to the first FISA application and then the renewals. So yes, as you point out, this is over 400 pages. Instead of reading it from front to back, my advice for those who are just trying to get some of the top lines, read the first few pages, read Appendix 1, and then the explanation of it towards the back of the report.
And you're saying that that will detail what? The wrongdoing was the exculpatory evidence that was not included in the FISA application, the fact that they relied on the Steele dossier almost entirely. Anything else?
Yeah, it's going to detail the mistakes that were made with regards to that first application. It will detail the mistakes that were made in the renewals.
Okay.
It will detail the problem with not following the Woods procedures. And it also, at the beginning of the report, it really does start off well. If you can only read the first few pages of it, you'll get a good taste of all the top lines.
The executive summary is very good. Let me move on to China, because both sides of the aisle want to ban Chinese buses and rail cars now after China reportedly banned foreign technology in its government and public offices. This is a big story, and I don't know that people are focused on this enough, because, you know, the story yesterday, which was cover story, Beijing orders removal of foreign computers and software by 2020 in the FT. And basically what this is doing is this is negating any opportunity for the U.S. to protect its intellectual property. Isn't that right?
Right. Well, we have the president as is, the United States as is, has increased the leverage than we've seen at points in the past. If for nothing else, just the willingness of President Trump to go to battle, even with threats. We do need to get at all of the IP infringement that we've seen. The stealing of intellectual property is something that's very damaging for individuals, for companies, for the U.S. economy. So how this plays out, you know, the threats alone have proven at times to give increased leverage to the president in these negotiations. But throughout this entire process, I've had the position that the longer that this goes on, the more threats and the more actually follow through as it relates to those threats, that you actually get to the point where both countries end up losing. So I'm hopeful that the president is able to bring this negotiation to a close, at least getting this first phase done as quickly as possible, because there is a big benefit to the U.S. economy. But what should not be lost in whatever deal gets cut is that need to get to that patent infringement and that the stealing of identity theft, which is something that many people look at as actually the biggest issue here.
Yeah, well, here's what Gordon Chang wrote this week. After all of these cybersecurity rules are in place, no foreign company may encrypt data so that it cannot be read by the Chinese central government and the Communist Party of China. In other words, businesses will be required to turn over encryption keys. So I'm saying to my head, okay, so then why do a deal if there's absolutely no opportunity for us to protect your intellectual property? We're gonna have Wilbur Ross on to talk about that coming up. But real quick on USMCA, we're told an agreement on passage has been reached. You heard it here first because I talked about this on Thanksgiving. What's your reaction to this? And do you believe that we will see Nancy Pelosi bring it to the floor this week?
I sure hope so. It would be fantastic. I don't know if it's going to happen this week or if it's something that might happen next week. It's something that really has to get done right away. The deal is a huge win for President Trump, but more importantly, it's a big win for the American worker. It's an important win for the U.S. economy, and that's something that made a lot of people speak out with their frustration to Nancy Pelosi. Is despite the fact that she dislikes President Trump, that she wants to do anything in her power to make sure he doesn't get reelected, including this impeachment, to hold back on wins for the U.S. economy, where you'll see jobs created, you'll see an increase in U.S. investment, where you could see a benefit to the U.S. GDP. That was greatly unfortunate. So it would be very exciting to see this bill come for House passage, not just for that big win for the president. He deserved it. His team worked hard. But most importantly, it's a huge win for our country.
But not before she brings impeachment to a vote, or will it be simultaneous?
I think that and who knows exactly how things will actually end up playing out, but what I'm hearing is that the last vote before everybody leaves the Capitol for the Christmas break will be the impeachment vote. That will be Nancy Pelosi's gift to America, is going to be that lump of coal. That will be the last act. So as far as funding the government, which needs to get done over the course of this next week or so before Congress adjourns, as well as USMCA and potential other legislation, which will probably include different messaging bills. Like Nancy Pelosi has a very partisan, it's a very lopsided prescription drug pricing bill that will not get a vote in the Senate. I think all of those, from what I'm hearing, all of those will get done before the impeachment vote.
All right, so then busy 8 days that you guys have left, and then I'm talking December 20th or something for the impeachment vote then, or that week. Congressman, it's good to see you then. Thank you so much.
So it's good to see you. Thank you.
We will see you soon. Lee Zeldin joining us coming up.